The news just keeps getting better and better. If you missed my broadcast from earlier today, go back and watch it. Lara Trump, the president's daughter-in-law, has just given us a huge update on the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, including that President Trump finally understands how much this story means to MAGA voters. Hillary Clinton's attorney, Mark Elias, is going around on mainstream media begging Mockingbird media not to cover Trump investigating John Brennan and James Comey, plus some shocking news from Governor Gavin Newsom and a positive admission about President Trump from Senator Bernie Sanders. It's such a great update today. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for liking and sharing these videos. If you haven't hit subscribe, we're almost to 2 million amazing truth seekers. Hit that subscribe button now. As you know, former FBI James Comey and former CIA John Brennan are now under official investigation for purposely misleading an investigation and the American people that Donald Trump was a Russian asset, and their attempt to remove him as president of the United States under Obama's orders. Now, I look forward to the outcome of this. This is just getting started. However, Hillary Clinton's private lawyer, a guy that helped her secure and defend the fake Russian dossier, Mark Elias, is now going on mainstream media instructing, nay, begging Mockingbird media to not cover this story, to not give it any energy, no breath, and it will just go away. Listen to what he had to say.
We predicted, you and I and others, that we were going to get to this moment. And the question is, what do we do? And the question of what we do is multifaceted. The first question is, what do we do? Do we retreat and hide in the corner? So I'm on TV today, not hiding in the corner. I'm not retreating. I'm saying I'm going to stand up and I'm fight. And Donald Trump won't intimidate me by going back to this 2016 stuff. And that's one thing. But the other thing we've talked about is, what do large institutions do? You know, what do civil society groups do? What does the media do? And I am imploring, like, honestly, I'm just imploring the media, do not report this as a legitimate investigation. Do not report this as they're opening a investigation into John Brennan. We will see where it goes. Report this as the misuse, the abuse, the authoritarian takeover of the Department of Justice. That should be the headline. The headline should be, in a misuse and abuse of the power of the executive branch, Donald Trump has asked his Department of Justice to open a bogus investigation into John Brennan.
I'm imploring, which my thesaurus tells me, strongly begging that you don't report the truth. The fact that these two lied to the American people, they went on TV and lied, they lied in front of Congress, they manipulated the American public. Lies, lies, lies. Shame on them. This is why they're being investigated. So now he's on camera begging, please, please, I implore you, don't do this. Well, it's happening right now. All right, Ghislaine Maxwell, the only person that we really have a name for with Jeffrey Epstein, she was convicted in 2022 and serving a 20-year sentence for trafficking children to Jeffrey Epstein's network. She is reportedly working through her lawyer saying, I am willing to open up to U.S. Congress about the Epstein files, about the client list, about the names that are involved when it comes to all of the weirdo sex stuff that he was doing, the blackmailing. Now, Maxwell claims that she was never offered an official plea deal and that she would be willing to tell her full story if formally asked. She also argues that she should be protected under the Epstein controversial 2007 non-prosecution agreement during the Obama years. Meanwhile, questions remain surrounding the Department of Justice's denial of the so-called Epstein list. So she is saying, I am willing to come in as a whistleblower in exchange for having my sentence lessened or removed. Now, in response to the renewed controversy, President Trump issued a lengthy statement on Truth Social. I want to show that to you guys now, and I will read it to you. So President Trump says, make this a little bit bigger, what's going on with my boys, and in some cases, gals? They are all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it. All over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brendan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration who conned the world with the Russia hoax, the 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, and more? They created the Epstein files, just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton, Christopher Steele dossier that they used on me. And now my so-called friends are playing right into their hands. Now that goes on, but basically President Trump is saying, listen, we've got great people. Don't be demonizing Pam Bondi. Don't be demonizing Kash Patel. Don't be demonizing Dan Bongino. They're doing their best, but this is a story that has been built up and made legend by Obama, by Hillary Clinton. It all happened under them. Everything that we have in the file comes from the very people that lied to us about what is happening in our country. So he's saying we should move on from this. There's other things to do. However, his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, she has now reported that he gets it now. He's heard from the base, and he is going to make good on this. Let me have you hear it from her, because she does a better job of explaining it than I do.
What would be your advice? Given this back and forth, we're just coming off of Turning Point here in Tampa. This was the topic of conversation. What would be your advice in order to take the temperature down on this issue from within the administration?
Well, I do think that there needs to be more transparency on this. And I think that will happen. I mean, look, I don't know what truly exists there, but I know that this is something that's important to the president as well. He does want transparency on all these fronts, that everything we're talking about, because it's frustrated him as well. He sat for 4 years like the rest of us did and saw lie after lie and saw our country just being sent down the wrong path. And it was really frightening and very upsetting to a lot of people to see. And I would actually say over the past 10 years, we've all kind of endured this. Prior to that, it was probably happening, Benny, but we just weren't as aware of it. It wasn't until Donald Trump came down that golden escalator that he just kind of blew the doors off of everything. And people started to wake up and realize, wait a minute, things are not as they have always been presented to us. And I do believe that you will see that. Now, as it relates to the president, I know that this is probably not his number one thing he's focused on. He's focused on a lot of other important things. We've got this big announcement with Russia going on, I think, as we're speaking right now at the White House. We have, a Middle East, we're trying to get peace over there. We're trying to make sure that Iran's nuclear arsenal is obviously completely decimated. We want to make sure everything is on the right track for this country. Fortunately, you've seen no border crossings in the last month. 0, by the way. I think that's incredible. No one's talking about that enough. 0 illegal border crossings in the month of June. Amazing how that's all gone. So I don't know that this was top of mind for him, but he hears all the noise and he hears all of the consternation out there. And I think he's going to want to set things right as well. So I believe that there will probably be more coming on this. And I believe anything that they are able to release that doesn't, damage any witnesses or anyone underage or anything like that, I believe they'll probably try to get out sooner rather than later because they hear it and they understand it. So hopefully we see that happen sooner than later. And I guess that would be my advice. But to everybody out there who's all worked up about it, there's no great plot to keep this information away that I'm aware of. I do just believe that maybe it's been slow rolled for reasons that hopefully we understand down the line. And I think we're probably going to get more transparency on it very soon.
So that's from President Trump's daughter-in-law, someone we hope will run in North Carolina to replace Tom Tillis. What do you guys think? Should Ghislaine Maxwell be allowed to testify, tell the entire Jeffrey Epstein story, the operations, the network, explain the people that are involved. What do you guys think of Lara Trump saying, he hears the noise, he knows, he gets it. He just has other things, but he's going to get you guys that transparency. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. While you do that, San Antonio police have arrested 52-year-old Robert Herrera for threatening to assassinate President Donald Trump. In response to a local news article about Trump's upcoming visit to Texas Hill Country, Herrera wrote, "I won't miss," and attached a photo of Trump surrounded by Secret Service following the January 13, 2024 assassination attempt that nearly took his life during the campaign trail. The threat came just 3 days after the one-year anniversary of Trump's shooting. When another Facebook user replied, "You won't get the chance, I'll just come for you," Herrera responded. So now Herrera is facing federal charges for threatening to assassinate a U.S. president and making interstate threatening communication. Each charge carries a potential sentence of up to 5 years in prison. He will now have to see his day in court. Okay, now reflecting on the assassination attempt of Trump from a year ago, Speaker Mike Johnson said, 1 year ago today, God miraculously spared the life of President Trump, and he is using him to lead our country back to greatness. If you believe that is true, will you type Y for yes? I personally do. Now, I'm a religious person, but as I watched that over and over again, I truly believe that we witnessed a miracle on live TV. I think it was meant to be evil, and it turned into a miracle. Now, sadly, the people that lost their lives, they didn't get that miracle, but they were heroes that stood in front of a bullet for their family members. Just incredibly sad. Now, again, the FBI is saying there's no great conspiracy around this. We've looked into it. This was a failure by the Secret Service more than it was a mastermind, multi-country plan through Thomas Matthew Crooks. Senator Rand Paul had this to say, "I think we aren't going to know the motive, and I take that at face value. I know a lot of times when we don't get something or we suspect something, we think government is lying to us. And look, I have my doubts about government on many levels, but I think on this level, they've tried their best, and I don't think there's a secret answer that they're not revealing to us. I think they just don't know." So what we have learned in just this last week is that 10 days prior to the assassination attempt, people at Secret Service learned of this plot, and it was never communicated to the Secret Service on the ground. Also, 30 minutes prior, they had chatter on the radios, text messages, and back channels that there was somebody there to take out Trump. They didn't remove him from the stage. So what Rand Paul is saying is this is a failure of the Secret Service more than a conspiracy. And a lot of people were fired. I reported on that a couple of days ago. They've now been fired after the investigation was finished. Okay, now I have a lot more to tell you, but first, a word from today's video sponsor. What if you could delay your next 2 mortgage payments? That's right. Imagine putting those 2 payments in your pocket and finally getting a little breathing room. It's possible when you call American Financing today. If you're feeling stretched by everyday expenses, groceries, gas, bills piling up, you're not alone. Most Americans are putting these expenses on a credit card, and there doesn't seem to be a way out. American Financing can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off your debt. You need to call American Financing today before you get to a point where you can't make these payments. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt, all without upfront fees. and their customers are saving on average $800 a month. That's like a $10,000 a year raise by being smarter with your money. It's fast, it's simple, and it could save your budget this summer. Call now before it's late at 888-686-8030. That's 888-686-8030, or visit americanfinancing.net/Gardner. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass has unveiled a new program to distribute cash cards to families of illegal immigrants afraid of ICE raids, aiming to provide relief for the immigrant community. You mean the illegal immigrant community. The announcement came during a press conference outlining her latest executive order, which directs city departments to refrain from cooperating with federal immigrant enforcement. The cash assistance program is modeled after the Angelo card launched by Mayor Eric Garcetti during COVID. Oh, and COVID in LA. Wow. One of the very worst cities. Now, Los Angeles, they are $1 billion underwater with their budget. They have no money. They're broke. They're literally begging the government for money. Well, now they've got CHIRLA, the Coalition of Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles. They have received public funding in the past, and now they're asking them to return that in the form of free money to illegal immigrants to avoid Tom Homan. The city will coordinate between donors and taxpayer money and distribution organizations to help out these illegals. Tom Homan commented on this on CNN with Dana Bash.
I just want to ask more broadly and a little bit of a different sort of question here. One thing I have heard over and over anecdotally is that people who are in the United States legally are scared about getting swept up in all of this because of the color of their skin, because they speak with an accent, because of the location where they might be going. And they're not going out. They don't want to be detained by mistake, have their kids or themselves traumatized. Are you comfortable with that?
If they're in the country legally, they got no reason to be afraid. ICE is looking for those in the country legally, and we're still prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats. That's the priority. But like I said, we do have collateral arrests in many areas because we're out looking for those public safety threats. But we're going to enforce immigration law too. I mean, it's not okay to be in this country legally. It's not okay to enter this country legally. It's a crime. But legal aliens shouldn't, and U.S. citizens should not be afraid that they're going to be swept up in a raid. We know who we're looking for, and that's what the agents are out there seeking. And they use a lot of information. Most of the operations we conduct are targeted enforcement operations. When we go out, we know exactly who we're looking for. Most likely, we will find them. Many times, we have a criminal history and immigration history when we go out looking for that person. So, if you're in the country legally, you shouldn't fear ICE. But what you should fear is the criminal aliens walking the communities in sanctuary cities.
Well, but you just said that there are, quote, collateral arrests.
All right. So right there, she tries to sweep him up into semantics, but that kind of stuff happens, right? My wife and I, we got pulled over one time driving back from my in-laws. We were having a nice Sunday dinner. We're driving home. 2 cop cars come up behind me. They've got their hands on their hip, flashlights. They're tapping the glass while one's distracting me. The other one's looking in the back. And I'm freaking out like, what the heck is going on? And they said, your vehicle matches a vehicle that just robbed a 7-Eleven at gunpoint. So we had to check you out. And I'm like, wow, no, it's not me. I was able to prove who I was. They let me go. They went on. Hopefully they caught that person. So yeah, collateral stuff happens in the name of trying to keep people safe. But I believe that ICE is doing the very best that they can. All right. Now, a few days ago, I told you about a raid on a marijuana farm. The mainstream media then kicked into high gear, trying to provide a narrative that Donald Trump, Tom Homan, ICE, that they were harassing and badgering farmers, food farmers, in fact. They said food farms. Well, it turns out that it was a marijuana farm. Democrats, the mainstream media, and especially Governor Gavin Newsom, they jumped right in to attack Donald Trump and defend illegal immigrants. But now we know why. In a shocking revelation, Graham Farrar, president of Glass House Farms, was found exploiting unaccompanied migrant children on his marijuana farm. Some of them as young as 14 years old, some of them with no parents, being paid meager wages. Federal authorities arrested 361 illegal immigrants, rescued 14 children from forced child labor and trafficking. California Governor Gavin Newsom, a vocal critic of ICE and a defender of this farm and this gentleman that owns the farm. But now we know why. People are starting to dig in, and they're finding out that this marijuana farmer is a big Gavin Newsom donor. So, of course, Gavin Newsom is motivated to jump in and defend the person that gave him money to get elected. Unbelievable. All right, now the head of JP Morgan Chase Bank, Jamie Dimon, has admitted that most Democrats have good hearts and Democrat leaders have terrible ideas. He said they don't know what they're doing. In fact, they're actually ruining the country. Let me pull this up and we will watch this together.
America's top banker Jamie Dimon criticizing Democrats. He said, quote, "I have a lot of friends who are Democrats and they're idiots. I always say they have big hearts and little brains. They do not understand how the real world works. Almost every single policy rolled out failed." Kind of reminds America's top.
All right, wow. That summed it up in 30 seconds. Good hearts, tiny brains, terrible, terrible ideas. Now, Bernie Sanders, he praised Donald Trump for what he's done on the border. I mean, not directly. It was very indirect, but he still did it nonetheless. Senator Sanders says the U.S. needs a border, and Democrats have done a poor job enforcing it. You don't have a country without borders, he says. If you have borders, you should enforce that border. Democrats have not done a good job, not done as good of a job as they should, period. End of discussion. So it was kind of a backhanded compliment because on the one hand, he wants to stand with Democrats. On the other hand, he has to admit they have terrible ideas and they flooded the country with cheap labor from third world countries that don't speak English, that don't have the same morals and behaviors that Americans are instilled with. And these people, they come in here, they're poor, they don't have a plan. And what happens? They get addicted to living off the teat of the American government, which is really the American people. So pretty crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, President Trump wants an announcement to go out to his voters. He wants everyone to know that, yes, we are supporting Ukraine by supplying them with Patriot air defense munition. However, Europe is paying American companies, rather, to provide that. Not $1 of taxpayer money is going from the American taxpayer to the military-industrial complex. It is Europe. He also said that President Putin has 50 days to end this war. They've had too many nice discussions where Putin has said nice things and made promises and done nothing. President Trump said he will now be forced to step in and end this war. And his next step will be that they are going to hit Russia with 100% tariffs in all of the areas that they don't have yet. And then everyone else who does business with America and also does business with Russia, they will be hit with a 50% tariff until Russia ends the war. So they're trying to now get the business partners of Russia to put pressure to end the war, or else you can't do business in the United States of America. He'll be meeting with Secretary General Mark Rutte of NATO later today to discuss. All right, that's a lot going on. If you didn't see today's earlier video, the auto pen scandal of Joe Biden has just been exposed. President Biden admits, I don't know who they pardoned, but I didn't approve it and I didn't sign it. So the Dr. Fauci, the Liz Cheney, the Adam Kinzinger, the Adam Schiff, they're all fake, illegitimate pardons. And the lawsuits are about to roll in. I'll put that video right here. Go check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay amazing. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get to 2 million amazing truth seekers. I'll see you on the next one.